Hello, my name is Krista Allard and I'm a physiotherapist at One Kids Place. Today's webinar focuses on stages of gross motor development. You can use this webinar to see where your child is at or what stage they are heading into next. This webinar covers ages birth to about 6 years of age. The goal of this webinar is to know where your child should be at, or if there are concerns and you should submit a referral to physiotherapy services at One Kids Place. So, when do you refer? If your child is capable of showing some of the age-appropriate activities, but has difficulty with some, consider the following information. So consider their past medical history that could have impacted their motor development. An example of this could be prematurity. Consider your child's exposure to the activity or their overall interest level in the activity. You should also look for the quality of movement for the skills that your child has achieved. You can also look at the impact their difficulties are having on their social development. Another thing to consider is your child's age. This presentation covers several months or several years at a time. If your child is at the younger age of a group, they just might not be quite developmentally ready to do that skill yet. You should also consider your child's overall muscle tone. So muscle tone is how active the muscles are. Some children have higher muscle tone and some children have lower muscle tone. A child with high muscle tone might be a little bit too tight and have a difficulty moving their arms. A child with very low muscle tone might have difficulty keeping their muscles active and they might seem a little bit more floppy. Most people fall kind of in the middle. We'll chat about this more in future slides. It's important to know that there are no bad referrals. If you are unsure, you can refer. It's also important to know that you can refer on our website or you can call our front desk. Physicians can also refer, but you don't have to go through a doctor to do a referral to One Kids Place. Parents are free to decline services if their concerns have arisen or resolved before they're offered service. However, most parents follow through with the assessment to make sure there are no concerns. The first age band we're talking about is 0 to 2 months of age. And remember, when we were talking about this age band, this is the continuum from birth to about 2 months. So we're not expecting all of these skills out of a newborn baby. So what can we expect in this age band? We expect babies to be able to hold up their head when held over your shoulder. They should also be able to randomly move their arms and legs. When they're placed on their tummy with a little bit of support, they should be able to clear their nose, so just lifting that head a little bit. When they're on their tummy, their legs should start to extend behind them, so kind of moving out of that fetal crunched up position. When given toys or faces, they should be able to track that toy with their eyes only. When they're on their back, we expect arms coming down closer to the body rather than way out to the side or crunched up at their belly. When in supported sitting, we expect babies to be able to hold up their head very briefly, but we do expect heads will be a little bit bobbly at this point as well. And when placed with weight through their feet, we should be able to get a little bit of weight through their feet. That being said, we don't expect kiddos at this age to be able to stand. From 0 to 2 months of age, what we should worry about or when should a referral be submitted to physiotherapy at One Kids Place? Lack of head control or minimal movements of extremities. And lack of head control is more towards the 2 months of age when we should be expecting kiddos to hold their heads up for a little bit. Plagiocephaly, so flattening along the back of the head on either side or along the very back. Or torticollis, which is tightening of the neck muscles on one side. You'll notice this if your child is preferring to look in one direction only when placed on their back. You can also submit a referral to physiotherapy or a feeding team if you notice feeding difficulties. Or if you notice muscle tone is too high, so for example, you have a hard time changing diapers or changing clothes, or if muscle tone is too low, so if your baby is especially floppy. 2 to 4 months of age. what are we expecting at this age band? At this age band, we're expecting children to be able to maintain their head in the middle when they're on their back. We also expect babies to be able to bring both hands to their chest or their mouth when they're on their back. We also expect babies to start bringing their knees or feet to hands when they're on their back, so start playing with their lower extremities. We also expect rolling from side to side when they're on their back, but knowing that they might not make it all the way onto their tummy at this age. We also expect attempts to reach for toys, even though they might not grasp them at this age. We expect babies to be able to follow toys or faces with their eyes. We also expect babies during tummy time to be able to push up on their elbow with their head above the horizontal, so about to 45 to 90 degrees. So if you look at the little baby on the right side, you can see his head is lifted nice and high, and he's able to look around freely. When babies are being pulled up to sitting from their back, we do expect minimal head lag, or we expect a little bit of a chin tuck throughout the process. We also expect babies to sit with their heads up and their back straight when they're provided support at their chest, so that bobblehead should be gone at this point. When in standing, babies should be able to bear a little bit of weight through their feet and legs when they're supported at their chest. Remember, at this age though, we're going to be developing strength for their legs during activities like tummy time. So what are we worrying about at 2 to 4 months of age? We're worried when we see asymmetry in movement or with their posture. Asymmetry means that one side is a little bit tighter or one side is more active than the other side. We also worry if children are always looking to the same side. This could indicate a torticollis, as we had discussed in the previous slide. We are also worried about plagiocephaly, which is head flattening. Once again, you can see plagiocephaly on either side of the head or along the back of the head. We're also worried about head control at this point. So if your child is not holding their head up when moving. We're also worried about muscle tone, if their tone is too high or too low. So if their muscles are a little bit too tight and you find diaper changing or dressing challenging, or if they just seem a little bit too floppy. We're also worried about feeding difficulties at this age as well. And at this age, it's primarily with breast or bottle. The next age band is 4 to 6 months of age. So what do we expect out of this cohort? We expect babies to be able to play with their hands and their feet together. We also expect babies to be able to reach for toys and grasp them successfully. So remember that some toys are easier to reach for than others. So toys with loops and swoops are going to be easier for those tiny fingers to grab. We also expect babies to be able to push up through extended arms on their tummy. So that's putting weight through their hands and lifting their chest. During tummy time, we also expect to see some weight shifting. So that's moving side to side when they're on their tummy playing. We also expect the landau to start emerging. So that's when you see your baby doing the swimming. So they're extending their legs and their arms when they're on their tummy at the same time. We also expect rolling in both directions at this point. So between tummy to back and back to tummy. We also start seeing sitting emerging. So babies at this age will start sitting briefly without support by propping on their hands. So in the top right picture, you can see the baby propping with his hands on the mat, putting some weight through and holding his balance briefly. At this age as well, we start to see a little bit more core control come when babies are placed in standing. So they're able to support themselves while holding at fingers or their chest when in standing. Remember though, floor and tummy time is the best way to develop the muscles important in standing. So what are we worried about when kids are 4 to 6 months of age? We're always worried about muscle tone, so if kids are too floppy or too tight. We're also worried if kids' heads are not in line with their body at midline. So if you see a head tilted to one side or the other, so that's either at the chest or at the head. We're also worried if babies at this age are not attempting to reach for toys, or if they are not attempting to roll. We're also worried if babies keep their hands fisted with their thumb in their hand, and this is especially when they are at play or when they're at rest as well. We're also worried when babies won't take any weight through their legs at all. At this age, we're still worried about plagiocephaly or torticollis. So that's head flattening, or if babies are still preferring to look in one direction only, indicating that there might be a tight neck muscle persisting. And once again, we're worried about feeding difficulties at this age as well. The next age band we'll chat about is 6 to 9 months of age. What do we expect out of this cohort? At this age, we expect proficient rolling in both directions. So from their back to their tummy or from their tummy to their back. Babies at this age should also be able to move their arms and their legs independently to one another. On this age, we also start to see babies push up onto their hands and knees in that crawling position. This can happen later to the 7, 8, 9 months. You likely won't see it at 6 months of age. During tummy time, we also start seeing some pivoting. So that's going to one direction or the other to go and grab their toys. We also expect babies to start sitting without support and start reaching for toys when they're in sitting, so their confidence in sitting is improving. We'll notice babies also start to have protective reactions. So that's getting those arms out to either side or in front if they start to lose balance. At this age, protective reactions might not be sufficient. So if they lose balance, they might still fall over even though that arm comes out to the side. We might also see babies start getting from sitting to laying down on the floor. And when babies are at a horizontal surface, such as a stable table or activity cube, they can stand with just support from that table. So, what are we worried about at 6 to 9 months of age? At this age, we're worried if babies aren't sitting independently, especially due to muscle tone. So if babies are too floppy or too tight. In a baby too floppy, they might fall over without support, or if a baby is too tight, you might see falling backwards because their muscles are overactive and push them in that direction. We also worry if there's no attempt to move to obtain a toy. So that's either sideways or trying to start to propel themselves forward to get a toy. We also worry if a child is using one side of their body more than the other, so if there's that big preference and asymmetry. We also worry at this age if a child is not rolling, especially to both directions. We also worry if a child is not playing with toys or is very disinterested in toys. The next age band we'll talk about is 9 to 12 months of age. What do we expect at this age? We expect a child to be very stable in sitting at this age, and we expect different leg positions when in sitting. So for example, you may see a child transition between a big ring sit, side sits, or long sits. We also will see a child come up onto their hands and knees and potentially start crawling. Now remember, crawling includes 4-point crawling, so that's the hands and knees crawling we think of, or commando crawling, so that's creeping along on their belly. We also start to see babies starting to pull themselves up at kneeling at a low service, so that's just onto their knees with support through their hands at a low table. Babies might also start pulling themselves to stand at furniture or when holding a caregiver's hands. When in standing, they should be able to lower themselves from standing to the floor with good control. We also expect to see some cruising steps to either direction along furniture. You might also see walking with hands held or while using a push toy. You'll also start to see creeping upstairs on hands and knees, so some of that simple climbing emerging. So what are we worried about at 9 to 12 months of age? We're worried when babies are not transitioning between and from sitting, so going from their belly to sitting and sitting to belly. We're also worried if there's no attempts to crawl forwards. So that's either on their hands and knees or commando crawling on their tummy. We also worry if they're not standing at the furniture at all, so if they're put into that weight-bearing position and they're not able to hold it, or if they're not able to get from standing down to the floor as well. We also worry at this age if a baby is using one side of their body more than the other. So if you're noticing big differences between the right and the left. We're also worried if a child is not playing appropriately with toys or is very disinterested in toys. As always, we're worried when muscle tone is not appropriate. So if a child has muscles that are much too tight or muscles that are much too loose. Feeding difficulties at this age are a concern as well. And once again, we are concerned with a torticollis, so that's a tight neck muscle, or plagiocephaly at this age. It is important to note, though, that the fontanelles in the head close around 12 to 18 months in most children, so physiotherapy might not be able to make appropriate recommendations to help with the plagiocephaly at these later ages. 12 to 18 months of age. What are we expecting? Remember, this is quite a large age band with a lot of variances between individual babies. So in this age band, we expect children to start standing from the floor without support. We also start seeing walking, and walking will become more stable with time. So you see base of support narrowing, which means feet will go from being very wide to almost align with their hips. We start seeing arms become more relaxed, and we start to see that heel-toe pattern emerge. As babies become more proficient at walking, we're able to see them stop walking and change direction. We're also able to see them squat to pick up a toy when walking, or play in that squat position as well, and continue on walking from that squat position. We'll start to see climbing furniture or age-appropriate playground equipment with supervision or assistance. We'll also start seeing babies throw a ball with one hand in the standing position without losing balance. Babies at this age might also contact the ball and attempt to kick without losing balance. It might look more like a shuffle at this point rather than a kick. 12 to 18 months of age. What are we worried about? At this age, we are worried if children are not walking anywhere between that 12 to 18 months of age. So for example, if a child is walking later than 18 months of age. We're also worried if children are not showing readiness to stand without support at this age, or if they're not standing up from the floor without support. We also worry if children are not playing appropriately with age-appropriate toys, or if they're not able to climb furniture. We also worry if children are using one side of the body more than the other, so they're preferring the right or left side. We also worry about asymmetrical posture, so if one side of the body is much more tight or much more loose than the other side. We also worry if children are turning their feet in or out excessively. It is important to remember that as children learn to stand or walk, that turning in or turning out can be normal. We are worried if this seems extremely excessive or if they're not able to get their feet flat on the floor because of it. If you're unsure if the amount your child turns in or out is excessive or not, feel free to put in a referral to One Kids Place to have alignment assessed. We're also worried about muscle tone once again, so if your child seems too tight with their muscles or too floppy. The next age band we're going to talk about is 18 to 24 months of age. So what do we expect in this age group? We expect children to be able to complete more than one physical activity at the same time. For example, we'll see confidence increase with walking. They'll be able to walk with a pull toy or be able to walk holding onto a small toy. We should see kiddos climbing on or off or over furniture. Confidence should also increase with walking, and we should see attempts to walk fast or even attempts to run. Running feet will not be leaving the floor at the same time at this age. We should see more coordination with walking and running with fewer trips and falls. We also might see a kiddo start to stand on one foot briefly. For example, this is to kick a ball or to lift their foot to put a shoe or a boot on. We'll start seeing independent propelling on ride-on toys. And we'll start seeing backwards walking and sideways steps when walking. A child at this age should be able to put their arms out in preparation to catch a ball, but know at this age they may not catch the ball. We might start to see jumping attempts, but we might not see both feet leave the floor yet. We start to see jumping emerge closer to 2 years of age. We also expect to see a child go up and down a few steps in standing without support. We also get some fun toddler dancing. What are we worried about at 18 to 24 months of age? We worry when children seem stuck with walking or they're not able to increase their walking speed. If a child is still walking with a wide base of support, so those feet are very wide apart, they're unsteady, or if they hold their arms in high guard, so holds those arms stiff at waist level or higher. If the child walks on their tippy toes for most of the time and they've been walking for a month or so, or if your child is toeing in or toeing out excessively. We also worry about a lot of trips and falls with no apparent obstacles in their path. We also worry if a child is not crawling or walking over obstacles, or if they're not able to play in a squat position. We're also worried if they're not able to do multiple tasks when walking, like walking backwards or sideways, or while pulling or pushing a toy. We worry if they're not able to kick a ball or step over a box without support, so they're not doing a bit of weight transfer from one foot to the other. At any age, we continue to worry about asymmetrical posture. So if one side is tighter than the other, or one side is more active than the other side. And same thing with muscle tone. At any age, we're worried if a child's muscles seem much too tight or much too loose. 2 to 3 years of age. What do we expect from this age band? At this age, walking gets easier and easier, so children should be able to walk on uneven ground and navigate slopes. They should be able to climb on, off, and over furniture and run without falling. We expect children at this age to start standing on one foot for a few seconds. This can be during functional tasks, such as putting on a shoe or a boot. We also expect jumping at this point, so jumping with feet together or slightly apart, and we expect jumping about 6 to 12 inches. We also expect jumping down from low surfaces, such as 7 to 10 inches, like a bottom step or a curb. We also expect children to jump over small hurdles at this point, so about 1 to 2 inches off the floor. We expect a child to catch a large ball using their arms and hands, so trapping to their chest. We also expect children to be able to throw a tennis ball forward underhand, and it's okay if they still swing the ball sideways or overhand with a nice overhead pattern extending from their elbow. We also expect a child to be able to kick a ball forward at this age without losing their balance. 2 to 3 years of age, what are we worried about? At this age, we're worried when children are not able to increase their walking speed. We're also worried if children continue to walk with a very wide base of support, so their feet are still quite far apart, they're very unsteady, or they hold their arms stiffly at waist level or above waist level. We're also worried if children are walking consistently on their tippy toes most of the time, or if they're in-toeing or out-toeing excessively. We're also worried if children trip and fall a lot with no apparent obstacles in their path, so they seem to trip over nothing. We're worried if children are able to crawl, not able to crawl or walk over obstacles, or if they're not able to play in a squat position, keeping those heels down. We're worried if children are not able to progress their walking by walking backwards or sideways while pulling a toy or holding a toy. We're also worried if kids aren't able to kick a ball or step over a box with or without support, so they're having difficulty with weight shifting or transitions. As always, we're worried about asymmetrical posture, so if one side of the body appears tighter or more active than the other side, and we're worried about muscle tone, so if a child seems much too loose or much too tight. 4 to 6 years of age. What do we expect? At this age, we expect a child to be able to do 3 sit-ups with their feet held and 3 push-ups. We expect children to be able to stop and change direction when they're running without falling or losing their balance. We expect our child to be able to stand on one foot for about 5 to 10 seconds without losing their balance. We also expect them to be able to walk forwards on a 4 to 6 inch balance beam for about 6 to 8 feet without stepping off. We also expect them to be able to jump forward about 24 to 36 inches with their feet together. We also expect children to be able to jump over a hurdle about the height of their knee. We also expect children to be able to jump sideways over a hurdle or jump and turn. At this age, children are learning to hop and should be able to hop about 3 to 5 times on each foot. Children also learn somersaults at this age. However, you should also consider exposure provided during this activity as well. Children are able to start learning how to gallop at this age and should be able to gallop forward with either leg in front. Children are also catching a ball using their hands at this age, with the size of the ball decreasing to about the size of a tennis ball, but they might secure the ball to their chest if needed. We also expect targeting improving with tennis balls using an overhand or underhand throw, and we pretty much expect children to be able to throw to a partner at this age if the partner is standing about 5 to 10 feet away. We also expect bouncing and catching a ball at this age. We expect children to be able to go up and down the stairs without supervision or support, and to be able to place one foot on each stair at a time. We expect children to be able to climb playground equipment quite easily at this age as well, and to participate in organized activities or sports with their peers. What do we worry about at 4 to 6 years of age? Tripping and falling a lot with no apparent obstacles in their path. If children are not able to run without falling, or looks quite awkward when they're running. If children walk with a wide or unsteady base of support, or walks on their tiptoes most of the time. If a child is toeing in or toeing out excessively when they're walking. We're also worried if a child is unable to gallop. We're worried if a child is unable to go up and down the stairs without support or needs quite a bit of supervision still on the stairs. If a child is unable to kick a ball, catch a ball, or throw a ball forward and hit large targets or towards peers. If a child is unable to stand on either foot without swaying or losing their balance excessively. If the child is unable to jump forward more than 12 inches, if they're unable to jump over low hurdles, or jump sideways, taking off with both feet at the same time. Or if children fall upon landing consistently when jumping. We're also worried if a child is unable to hop at least one time on either foot, or has difficulty on age-appropriate playground equipment. Like with every other age band, we're worried about asymmetrical posture. So if one side of the body is more active or looks tighter than the other side of the body. We're also worried about muscle tone. So if a child's muscles are too tight or too active, or if the child appears too floppy or too loose. We're also concerned if children have a high degree of difficulty in participating in organized sports with peers. You've reached the end of the webinar, Stages of Gross Motor Development. I hope this webinar has been informative and helpful and has given you a bit of information on when to refer your child to physiotherapy services or to know where your child is at and where they should be going with their skill development. Should you have concerns with the content of this webinar, please don't hesitate to reach out to a representative at One Kids Place, and we'll be more than happy to assist you.